should make diamonds, so I'm covered in ice. Got me out for the whole pie, I don't want a slice. In a room full of bad girls, that's not my type. Cause I'm married to the game, baby, that's my wife. Whole board getting wiped down, we don't play light. Never psyched out, 100 proof, everything's spike. All boxes getting checked off, cause that's what I write. Got wings made of hundreds, I'm about to take flight. Going up, going up, blow it up, blow it up.
Okay guys, so on the range today we have the SIG Sauer P211-GTO. Now this is the comped version that actually has a 3D printed compensator in the front, which is pretty cool. But this gun's been out for a couple of years, and I don't really remember hearing a lot about it when it first came out. But for some reason, over the last month or two, a lot of reviews have been popping up about the SIG GTO specifically. So, since I am such a lover and obsessed with the 2011 platform, I thought we would put it through its paces and see if it actually lives up to other 2011s in the marketplace. Well, at least I now have a reason for P320 mags. Okay guys, so let's talk a little more in depth about the SIG Sauer P211 comp or competition. So when I came into this, I am not going to lie, I had a bit of a negative connotation that comes along with SIG. And a big chunk of that is just because of the P320s for one, and a lot of the issues and a lot of the ways that that PR was handled. Not exactly my favorite, but another thing is just in general, even without potential or non-potential issues with the P320, I just don't particularly like that gun. I don't like the way it shoots. I don't like the trigger. So when this came out, it definitely was something that was quite interesting to me, just because it falls into that 2011 or double stack 1911 space in some essence, but that it takes P320 mags. So right off the bat, first couple of shots with this were fantastic. I had shot it before, but it's something I feel like you have to experience to fully understand that this has a very unique slide sort of tracking feeling or recoil feeling. And I think that's just because of this compensator. So I want to talk about this first because it is actually 3D printed. Now, if you see, it has a top port and two different side ports, but if you can look down into the compensator, those are not part of the same path that this top compensator port is. And so you've got gas that goes in and comes out the top, but it also gets directed downwards into two separate sort of vented pathways. And I think that's really only something that could be achieved with 3D printing, very similar to a lot of the 3D printed silencers now. A lot of the performance is drastically increasing in smaller and smaller silencer bodies, purely just because we can manufacture different baffle stack pathways and just different designs that were not really possible with conventional just manufacturing methods. And so in general, when I've seen compensators that have a top and two side ports, obviously they are expelling gas from the same chamber, and I haven't always found those very effective, but this was incredibly effective. Shooting this, it really was quite similar to the Bull TAC comp that I shot, just in the sense that, like, when you're watching some of the shooting footage, the slide really is not moving very much. I still think that the TAC comp to me shot just a little bit flatter, but this definitely is a pretty serious contender. And so because of this compensator and just overall design, I found myself able to shoot this incredibly fast with very little effort, keeping my rounds on target and just being able to transition super fast and just keep up incredibly high rates of fire for me while still seeing my dot and still easily being able to track that. And so obviously this is a pretty heavy gun. It is all steel slide frame and a alloy grip that has some G10 on it, which we'll talk about. But I think this is coming in around 46 to 47 ounces unloaded. It is a hefty piece of steel in your hand. And I think along with that and the compensator and the way they have tuned this, it is definitely something that most people are going to find to be really, really enjoyable to shoot. And you're just going to notice a much flatter, I think, response, which is a drastic improvement over what I feel like was a super high bore axis on the P320, which just, again, is not my favorite feeling. The other thing that I thought made this shoot really well was the G10 grips. Now, I am someone who likes incredibly aggressive grips. So having this be super, super just tacky and grippy without being like ultra aggressive on the hand itself, that was a huge benefit. You obviously have some checkering on the back and the front strap, as well as just under this trigger guard, which is quite large or quite long, is probably the best way to describe it. So if you were shooting with gloves or any type of other gear like that, that just makes your hands larger, or you just have a really, really large hand, it gives you a ton of space in there just to be able to actuate that. And so with all of those things, this was a very, very easy one to shoot from SIG, and that obviously translated to the accuracy of the P211. So let's see what it looks like. Okay guys, so we are on the range with the SIG Sauer P211-GTO, and as usual, we are going to see how accurate this thing can be at about 10 yards. Okay guys, I am gonna say that I can live with that. I'm pretty sure they're all touching, so this thing shoots straight. Okay, so just to touch on some of the technical features on the P211, obviously we've talked about the grip as well as the frame and the compensator itself, but what we also have are a humongous magwell. Now this is the way to do magwells if you're going to do a factory magwell. It is blended and just funneled out very well, but when you flip the P211 over, you notice it's not a crazy large magwell typical of how big this opening is, so that is incredibly well done. It also has my favorite, a active grip safety, as well as thumb safety and a slightly extended slide stop. Now, it kind of looks a little wonky that this is curved down, but you'll notice that being able to lift that up becomes quite a bit easier just with that sort of awkward ledge. And with the thumb safety, it is obviously ambi for those lefties. Okay, so now let's talk about the SIG lock optic system. I am a huge fan of modular optic plates, and I just really enjoy seeing how different companies from an engineering perspective tackle this. And so this is a pretty unique one. Now it's sort of set up to work natively with the Delta Point Pro optic footprint, but what you'll notice are these two removable sort of optic posts. And so because of it being a direct mill for the Delta Point Pro, we used the Vortex Venom enclosed, and as you'll notice, it's got a few little indentations that directly made up with these posts. So along with both of those diagonal posts and the set screws that keep the optic body itself mounted to the slide, this thing is not going anywhere and it's going to be rock solid. And obviously with it being a modular optic system with plates and other various things, even on the aftermarket, there's some companies who do plates. You can pretty much mount most anything full size onto the P211. Okay, so this shoots incredibly well, has an awesome trigger, which lent it to being incredibly accurate, but there's always got to be some pros and cons and some give and takes. So what are my pros with the P211? So a couple obvious ones that we've talked about is going to be the 3D printed comp. It was not something that I realized was 3D printed until I really dove into some of the details for this review. And it is incredibly effective, far more effective than I expected it to be. The other big pros I would say are the fact that it just has the 1911 or 2011 native controls. I'm so used to that and is my favorite platform, so it just was a very comfortable shooting experience. And this grip slash just the whole grip size and shape itself was incredibly comfortable in my hand, and they have done a fantastic job with the ergonomics for this. The other big one would be just the optic system. I think it is pretty unique and it looks incredibly sturdy. So if you correctly mount your optics, torque them down, Loctite or Vibratight the screws for the optic itself, I see absolutely no way that these are coming off. And the magwell, which is massive, so if you miss reloads with this, you definitely are doing something wrong. And last but not least, it is probably the least important, or the most important, depending on who you are, is going to be just the overall aesthetic and slide serrations. Now, I will say these are incredibly aggressive. Without being hard on the hand, they just dig in just because they're really, really deep serrations. And it looks pretty cool. It's kind of your standard SIG style serrations. So that is definitely a pro because this is a pretty good looking model. But of course, there are definitely some cons, as with all things. And for me, I would say the biggest cons in general are going to be just little fit and finish things. Obviously, this is a production gun, so overall, like slide to frame fit and everything is not fantastic, but I don't expect it to be on a completely full production gun. It is acceptable, so we can let that kind of just be as it may. I would say the controls are really solid, but I would like to see just maybe some slightly less sharp or slightly just more contoured controls overall. I would also say a con with it is going to be this magazine release. Now, it is very large and, at least for my hand, easy to get to without really changing my grip. However, I have grown to prefer the slide stops like on my EDC that are sort of angled towards me, so that I can kind of push in on it a bit more and have just a bit easier time activating the magazine release. However, it is sprung well. So that is, again, not a huge thing, but just something that I wasn't a huge fan of when doing any reloads with this. But that's really the only cons that I had. Maybe the fact that it takes P320 mags, I don't know. But I know that there's a lot of those around, and they're probably not getting used, if I'm being totally honest, all that much. And so the biggest benefit to the P211, outside of how phenomenal that it shoots, is going to be that you now actually have a use for your P320 mags, which is going to be a big plus for a lot of people. So that is it for the SIG Sauer P211. This is a fantastic shooting platform. I was very surprised. Don't like much from SIG, but this was definitely something that I did. And if you liked this video, definitely hit the like button and subscribe to the channel because it helps us out tremendously to keep bringing better and better videos to you guys. And if you happen to have either a P211 or a ton of unused P320 mags, go ahead and let us know down in the comments. And as always, we'll see you on the range.